I was editing you see the New Hoking t-shirt? So we went to New Hoking in downtown Toronto because like it was in the
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
friggin'
yeah, yeah,
Kendrick Lamar,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So so Tara saw me editing it and then she's like, "Oh, you just put out memes, eh?" And I'm like, "Oh, it took you forever to realize that like that's what I'm doing, right?"
Mm,
Like I guess because we don't pay attention to each other's social media, but like I'm just chopping up little sound bites of like information or things I think are funny or entertaining or like creative,
hmm.
insightful, you know? And then I saw this thing about like it was like a Star Wars meme. I don't know if you saw that, but it was like, Grandpa, you participated in the meme wars. What was that like? Right. And then I was like, oh, meme wars. But Elon Musk was like the one who rules the memes rules the universe.
Hmm.
Right. And if you really think about it, and I had to look into this, is like a long time ago before like the word meme was starting to get popular. And then somebody said like it as a joke, but I was like, what does meme actually mean? Because we think like etymology, the meaning of words all matter, right? So meme means mimetic.
Hmm.
Okay, so like what that is like packets of information that get transferred from one person to another. So it's just knowledge,
Sure.
right? And and all of this is just like it's like it's like knowledge that we're spreading, and the algorithms are getting so good at figuring out what to send to us that we're building these walls of like I only understand this. And what you said was like who's going to look into that? And like you're like, oh, well, if you really care, you're going to look into that. Okay. So we were watching the Truman Show yesterday,
Hmm.
and they mentioned like, oh, God's a great painter who painted the sky. And it hit me. I was like, wait, people actually really do believe that there is a man in the sky that's painting our reality or had created us or um like is divinely guiding us. No, because like
Yeah.
you and I are like, wait a minute, no, this actually makes no sense, right?
Hmm.
But really though,
Sure,
right?
sure,
But
sure.
there are
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people that really believe this, right? And like if you watch the Truman Show, like they're talking about it, I was like, no, like obviously this is fake. This is like Santa Claus, bro. Like if I was like, yeah, there's a dude in the North Pole just every year, just gives you Christmas presents, or like Tooth Fairy when you lose a tooth, right? Okay. So like see how ridiculous it sounds? Okay. So I realized because I grew up with this,
Hmm.
even I was like, oh yeah, there's like somebody who created us, and then like the Bible's real. The Bible's the word of God. You can't touch it, right? And then you go to Rome, and then you're like, wait a minute, they don't like the Vatican? Why? And they're like, yeah, because they just use Emperor Constantine as a political power to collect all of these stories and then use it to push a political propaganda. I was like, wait, what? And they start looking in the Bible. Okay, so I realized the reason why people are mostly religious is because they haven't looked into it about everything, dude.
Hmm.
Politics, religion, UAPs, everything, marketing. It's like the only reason why we're stuck in these waves of thinking is because at a certain point, like let's say you're in high school, like I went to a Catholic high school, everyone's like, yeah, you gotta pray to God, man, because like if you don't pray to God, like he's gonna make you go to hell. And I was like, wait, what? How does science work then? Where do we go consciously? And then you learn about all these things, right? But it's like they've actually just stopped. They're like, okay, what's the next? All right, now I just gotta learn about accounting so I can get an accounting job. Oh, okay, I should go learn. You know what I mean? Like the growth of learning has stopped. And I think that's why people literally still believe there's a man in the sky that's painting the clouds.
Hmm.
You're like, dude, you know how cloud works? Like you know how like
So
science,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. It's also, I think, if you, as you said, if you look into all these things, then the world gets complicated. To make it
Yes.
more simple, I mean, religion does make it a bit more simpler to understand,
Yeah.
and let God be God or whatever.
You're like, bro, how did those clouds get there? Man, this guy painted them. Like, oh, true. He's such a great painter.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like,
or yeah, whatever your
the
destination.
hell?
God's the one that set your destination, or this is supposed to happen, God willing, I mean, all that kind of stuff, right? So.
But where do you draw the line? So like my like Tara was like, oh, I really want you to ask them because like, and I know a lot of religious people, and I'm like, she's like, people really believe word for word that's in the Bible, like like people that I don't like, my family believes word for word what's in the Bible. And I was like, no, if you actually go to church, he says they're allegories. Like
Mm-hmm.
the priest will like say, I don't go to church anymore, but when I was like growing up, they'd be like, there's like a story about like a father who gives his savings to his son or something, and one puts it in the ground, one invests it, and then it's supposed to be a story about
Mm-hmm.
like reaping what you sow. It's like an analogy. And then she's like, but then wouldn't it all be an analogy? I'm like, no, they tell you which one's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, bro. So how do you know which one's an analogy and not then?
Mm-hmm.
So is it the Jesus story analogy or is that real?
Mm-hmm.
Is the story about like the mustard seed and like the planting for the future real, or is that like an analogy? You know what I'm saying? Like they're literally picking and choosing. And it's like, okay, there's a man in the sky that's painting that. Oh, then you find out about clouds and like cloud
Sure.
freaking
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
And like, no, no, yeah, that's real. Actually, this like he actually didn't make that.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud science is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so what else? You know what I mean? It's like you're just like
Either
picking and choosing, bro.
so it could be a yeah. There's an issue with if it was their understanding of science or some way to answer a question at the time, but then it became
Yeah.
dogma, which was the issue, right? Which was there's no adjustments, right? You can't
W-
adjust. This is
right.
what it is.
Which is what we've always said, which is spirituality and religion are just the science of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, bro, you didn't know. Like, that's it. Buddha doing all this freaking meditation stuff. He didn't know what he was doing. He's just like, it's what do you call that? Like observational
Yeah,
science
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
You're just like, okay, or anecdotal science. I don't know what it is, but
yeah.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
because Aristotle did that too. Like the philosopher Aristotle,
Mm-hmm.
he was
Yeah.
also a scientist. So he was just watching birds and he was writing down what he was seeing about birds, and then that became like science of the time. It's like, oh, birds are able to fly, and they might have hollow bones. Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, birds have hollow bones. It's just like we're all just trying to make sense of the world that's around us. And some people just stop trying to make sense of it and they just believe whatever now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But really
Yeah.
though,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's the differentiation point where it's like you and I are willing to see new information. We're like, okay, how valid is that information?
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's valid, okay, that's the new source of truth,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right? We're not going to be like, how valid is that information? Oh, it's very valid. It's made by the devil.
Yeah.
Devil's trying to trick
No,
you,
but
bro. No, but that's what I'm
it's
saying,
true.
right?
It's
That's why
true.
you're laughing because you're like, oh, no, no, that people do that. You're like people do that, bro.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So what's with society, bro? This is why we're like, oh, we're brainwashed or
Well, no,
like,
no. But I think we said that before too. We're the minority.
yes. And it's just, and what's the minority? You're like, oh, you guys are a minority of what? And like of looking into information, bro.
Yeah.
That's it. Just like
But
how
it's
valid is the
always been like
information?
that, right? Scientists have always been the minority, right? Even
Yes. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Galileo, it was locked up. You're changing,
Yeah, that's true. If you look at all the like the forerunners of
yeah.
science, they were all
At least in
ostracized.
the Christian world, yeah. I'll say that.
I really think that the Christian Crusades is what brought everything down because that's what the Dark Ages was. And they're like, oh, Dark Ages. People like say it like it's nonchalantly, like it's the Dark Ages. It's like, no, that was literally Christian knights going around and killing everyone that didn't believe in Jesus and then burning all the books that um
Mm-hmm.
like had nothing to do with Jesus. Like I think that's even a part of like one of the times that the Library of Alexandria got destroyed. When we went there, it was burned. Like there's been a bunch of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
natural
yeah.
disasters, but one of them was they went in and just burned a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
books. And it's like what information was lost? And like, okay, so I know you probably haven't looked into the whole Billy Carson thing, but like Ancient Aliens now, I'm like, it's just making the most sense, bro. Because if you want everyone to believe in like one God, then what do? You just destroy all the books that have nothing to do with one God.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your book talks about like or the Dogon tribe in like Africa who believe that they came from Mars, right? If the Christians had found those books, they just burn all of them. Like, no, that didn't happen. But
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but they literally said we went from Mars, bro. Like we're not gonna look into it. But
But it's happened. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's lot of things have been lost when you think of supremacy, when you go and act in supremacy. That
yeah,
yeah, like the Hawaiians, they lost their actual, like when you know the hula. Hula is like a dance now, but it was
yeah,
some sort of demon, or they call it a demonic martial art kind of thing. That is like,
yeah,
no, this has to be banned. This is too demonic.
yeah.